Say hello.
Hello.
Can you say mic check?
Mata.
Say, welcome to the motherhood.
Mommy.
Being a new mom is hard. We get it.
It's easy to feel alone, but we know that's never how God intended it. So we want to welcome you to the Motherhood.
If you need professional parenting advice, clinically proven data, or study-based evidence, please let us know where to find it. Because here at the Motherhood, we focus on sharing experiences, offering encouragement and understanding, but most importantly, friendship.
We're here to do motherhood together.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Motherhood. If you're new here or if you've forgotten, I'm Bethany.
And I'm Riley.
And we are so glad you're here listening to us, or maybe you're watching, but we are glad to have you. This week, we're talking about being people-pleasing moms.
Well, just people pleasers in general, and then as it relates to motherhood, because this is like something that we struggle with, like, hardcore.
Yeah, I know when we even started talking about the idea of a podcast and topics and stuff, we were like, we should definitely do an episode about how we're people pleasers, because it's kind of funny that we both are.
Right.
And so it's just a funny kind of fun dynamic even in our friendship.
Well, we do a really good job at balancing each other out, right?
Yeah.
So there are things where you see things one way and I see things a different way, but when it comes to people pleasing, we definitely tip the scale way one side.
Yes. And I think, like you said, I mean, we're talking about it also just generally as people, but like what that looks like once we've become mothers and stuff, and kind of the effects, because I do feel like there are many, but the effects of that in motherhood as well. So even if you maybe don't consider yourself a people pleaser, I think there's still something in this episode for everybody, because I mean, we're talking a lot about, I think, boundaries, learning to say no, kind of just sticking to ourselves, sticking our ground. So again, if you don't consider yourself a people pleaser, still listen. I think there's going to be something for everybody in this one.
So what does it even mean to be a people pleaser? I feel like we hear that word or that phrase a lot, but it's what is a people pleaser?
Yeah, I feel like maybe we should have Googled this, but I feel like I would define it as somebody who, I mean, you're getting your phone out.
Google.
My definition would maybe be somebody who makes decisions and things based off of other people's opinions.
So I did Google it. I have not read it yet. I'm gonna give my personal, and then we'll get the technical. So I think people pleasing is kind of, I was gonna say it's doing things that you don't want to do to make someone else happy, but that's not true, because I people please with you even as my best friend. I'm always well, if it's not too much, and I know that it's not, or that if it was, you would tell me. So I almost think it's trying to keep someone else happy or please someone else even above yourself.
Yeah. And I was going to say, it could be things that you want to do too.
Yeah.
That you probably just shouldn't because you don't have time or one other reason. We'll get into that. Okay. What does Google have to say?
So a people pleaser personality means a person feels a strong urge to please others even at their own expense, which I think is, spot on.
That's it.
As a people pleaser, that is what it is.
And the fact that they included the at their own expense at the last part, I'm hit the nail on the head.
And it's people pleasing down to what do you want for dinner? Because it's whenever we eat out, I'm what are you guys in the mood for? And in my heart, I'm Dos Bros.
Yeah.
I want Dos Bros. Yep. And then it's well, what
bowl.
do you want? And instead of being a burrito bowl, I'm well, I could eat Dos Bros.
Yeah.
I could eat Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
I could eat whatever. And then you kind of go with the flow and see what other people want instead of just being I'm craving Dos Bros.
Yeah, being loud with what you're actually thinking or feeling. You're I'm going to feel the room first and see what they're thinking or feeling before And it's funny because it's what's wrong with voicing what
There's
you want?
There's nothing wrong with it, but in my mind, I'm what if Bethany just had Dos Bros, but she doesn't want to tell me that because she wants to people please for me, But that's just it's funny to sit here and laugh about it because it is comical. The things, now there are extents where it's not funny, but we take it to such that extreme that oh my gosh, just shut up and say what you want to eat for lunch. Like, it's not that big.
I know. And Josh, my husband, always laughs at our conversations and stuff because we send each other like voice messages all the time. So like I'm playing it out loud in the kitchen and often Josh is like listening in and he just laughs at us because a lot of our conversations are like, okay, but like if it's not an inconvenience to you or but like if you're sure, no pressure, but you know, like we're always just like making that clear, like whatever you want to, like this is kind of what I want, but like what do you want and I'll do what you want, and it's just kind of like a funny dynamic.
I always bring in the memes and stuff from like social media, but there was one that was like, if you don't mind and it's not too much trouble, could you please maybe move your car off my toe if you don't mind?
Yes.
If it's a problem, I'm
fine.
good.
It's fine. I'll just amputate my toe.
So yeah, and of course we're sitting here making light of it, but that's because we can make light of it and laugh about it, or we can get real deep and personal and like cry about it.
Yeah.
Because I think here's the hard thing. It can be healthy to be considerate of others, but there's a point where that turns into a toxic trait.
Yes.
And at some point, you can't live your life to make other people feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And I feel like at the root, that's kind of what we're doing. Is it's like you want to make other people happy. You want to make them comfortable even at your own discomfort maybe. Yeah. And like, I don't know. I think at the root of it, you just want to be liked and easy to be around.
Well, that's exactly... I wasn't going to jump into this just yet.
Sorry.
But I went
there.
We're going to get deep after laughing about it. But when I was thinking about this topic, I was realizing that for me, I put a lot of my identity in like people pleasing, or just that my identity is that I want to be someone who is like approachable, well liked, popular, if you will, funny type of easygoing person. And so if that's how I want people to view me, a lot of times I'm making my decisions and doing things based off of what other people want because I want them to like me and I want to be like approachable and well liked and well known and everything. So talking about how it can be a toxic thing, again, I think for me it's toxic in the sense that I put all of my identity into it, and that's not what I should be putting my identity in, is like pleasing other people.
Right. So like, do you feel like that has been specific to being a mom, or have you always struggled with people pleasing and then it kind of like showed up in motherhood too? Like how has there been a shift there with motherhood?
Yeah, and a lot of this I think for me is just I'm literally thinking about these questions obviously like right now in this moment. So
process out loud.
I know, like literally thinking about it right now in the moment. I honestly don't think becoming a mom changed it for me much. I think becoming a mother actually made it harder for me.
Really?
Like, one, because I think it almost feels like there are so many more decisions you have to make, like, and for another person too. Like, not that I didn't have a lot of decisions beforehand, but like, you know, then you go through pregnancy and you're making decisions about birth and labor, or like what to get for your baby, and you go through labor and all the decisions, medical decisions that are involved in there, and then you have the baby, and then all the decisions that are involved in having, you know, healthcare and whatever else. And so I think it almost became more challenging for me because those decisions also felt so much like heavier and so much like more important than kind of like the carefree ones I was making for myself before kids. And I know there were like many a times that I can recall like struggling with like making decisions even in like my checkup appointments and like my kids' checkup appointments, like making decisions just because I felt pressured to, or like I wanted to make the doctor happy, or I wanted to make my midwife happy, or I was worried about what other people would think, or all these other voices and opinions were telling me what to do, and I didn't want to make anyone upset. So long answer to that is that I think becoming a mom made it harder for me to like say no and like block out what other people had to say. How about you?
Well, that's actually funny because I am the complete opposite.
As usual.
So but this is another cool thing about how like we're both such people pleasers, but within our experience they're so vastly different. Mm-hmm. So for me personally, I have always been a people pleaser. I would say from the time I was a little bitty thing. Yeah. Like you would give me the line and I would walk it. Mm-hmm. And if I heard that this project was going to be scored out of this criteria, well, I was going above and beyond.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't really want to say I wanted to be the best, because my goal wasn't to beat out my classmates, but my goal was definitely to please the teacher, and I was a teacher's pet. I'll just say it. From silly things like eating out and stuff like that, I was just always, I call myself overly considerate. And to the point of a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And so when I became a mom, though, I feel like I've kind of changed from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
And like we talked about in the identity episode, when I was talking about how, like, I don't think I fit a mold, and how I pull from each of them and how I'm okay with that, it's like something else internal happened with people pleasing, and I think that I'm getting better and better and better at saying no and doing things for me. And I think a lot of that is because, like, I think about the opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Before, when I would say yes to too many things, or I would eat what I didn't want to eat, or whatever, I was just putting more on Riley.
Yeah.
And it's like, I might have been overwhelmed and I might be overcommitted, but, like, I wasn't hurting anyone but me.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have Indy, and it's like my decisions affect her.
Yeah.
And so if I take on too much, I'm sacrificing time with her.
Yeah.
Or if, like, listen, I didn't really want to go here. I'm very nervous to speak about this topic. You already know where it's going. Because people pleasing, hello, I don't want to offend anyone, and I don't want you to not like me, so I've been keeping the skeleton in the closet, but I'm just going to say it, the V word, vaccines.
Yeah.
That's a huge one where, like, I feel like I want to trust a medical professional, and I want to not rock the boat. I'm not a boat rocker. I want to keep people happy, so, like, typically I would give into this. I did in COVID. I got the COVID vaccine when I was pregnant. I didn't necessarily think I needed it, but I was so fearful of something happening and whatever, so I got the vaccine and still regret it. Side note, tangent. Anyways, for me, that's been a huge, like, shift where I've had to say no.
Yeah.
And it's not even that I'm saying no. Maybe it's not yet, but either way, I'm so proud of myself, and that's just been such a good example with me, like, stopping and being like, you know what, I have this gut feeling, I've been praying about it, I don't feel that sense of peace, so we're not doing that right now. And that's as deep as I'm gonna go there for now. We'll eventually maybe have another conversation later. But that was huge for me. And I think because those are decisions for her, I feel like that's just my overall umbrella for motherhood is like, she doesn't have a voice yet, and so I have to be her voice. And, like, I have to think about, I'm going to make myself uncomfortable, or even someone else uncomfortable, for the benefit of my daughter.
Yeah.
And I say that not to say that you're not doing that, but I think that's just the different ways we're perceiving it. You know what I mean? Because it's also different examples we're giving. So.
Well, I mean, even just listening to you talking about that, I'm like, I do feel like I need more of that, which quite honestly kind of makes me, like, embarrassed, because I'm like, am I not, like, speaking up for my children?
No, that's not what I wanted you to take away.
People pleasing. No, but I mean, like, I think of the people who are, like, so okay with being like, no, like, speaking out, all the things, and I'm like, I wish I had more of that, you know, like, more of that boldness, and I guess even, like, confidence in a sense.
But let's be clear, because I do, and I'm sorry to just cut you off, but it's important that I make this, like, I'm not like, no, boldly.
Yeah.
It's a very polite and timid, like I literally, okay, so top lines of a people pleaser, I literally apologize to the doctor. I'm like, she'll be like, so no vaccines today, right? And I'm like, not yet, I'm sorry. Like, it's not even like a stern no. Like, I mean, it's a step in the right direction. I'm getting better.
Yeah.
And she's very respectful. She's always like, she literally is like, why are you telling me sorry? I'm not going to judge you for making a decision you think is best for your child. And I'm just like, I know, sorry. Oh, wait. Like,
well, that's another, like, prime example is even just, like, apologizing for, like, having your own opinion and decisions and stuff. And I don't want to, like, dwell on necessarily this specific topic yet, but I do think vaccines or even just, like, medical choices in general are kind of, like, such a big, heavy topic in motherhood and things like that. And it makes me think of one example where I feel like I did somewhat stand up for myself and, like, say no in a sense. But even when I was pregnant with Ayla, I was seeing one doctor who was pushing a lot of things on me. And even in that moment, I like was afraid to tell her, no, I don't want that. I would like make excuses like, oh, like, you know, I'm just waiting, or like whatever. Like I for some reason could not tell her like no, because
like
I was,
you would delay instead of just say no.
Yes, because I was like scared of offending this doctor, or I just don't like confrontation, you know. So
Same.
I'm like, I would just say no, like, oh yeah, okay, like maybe next time. And I, like, again, rather than just telling the doctor no, I ended up changing doctors. Like, I think I was like 32 weeks in my pregnancy, which, anyways, the beginning of it, I was seeing one doctor. She retired, and then I had to see another. So I wasn't seeing her very long, but I did end up changing to a midwife, which was like the best decision I've ever made, but again, was very late in my pregnancy. And I didn't like, and I would, every time I went into the office, I was so terrified I was going to see the doctor. And I'm like, that doctor's probably not even going to remember who I am.
Well, and not even that, but like, it's not like you're her only patient. Like,
Exactly.
Her practice isn't hurting because you left.
Yeah. But I, in one way, stood up for myself, and then I was like, okay, I don't like the things that she's like pushing on me, so I'm going to see somebody else. But again, it was like, I just kind of like up and changed. I wasn't like, hey, no.
But to be fair, like, there was, if you don't mind me sharing more about that situation, because, you know, we did talk about these things and everything. So, like, you didn't agree with a lot of things she did. It's not like there was one thing that made you uncomfortable and you were like, yeah, I'm just going to jump ship. Like, I really don't think you guys meshed as doctor-patient. But still.
But even, like, and I think for me, and obviously not in that situation, I didn't. But, like, for me, just, like, the definition of people-pleasing. Like, sometimes you put yourself in a situation and you stay in it even at the expense of yourself.
Right.
Like, I wasn't happy, and I probably should have changed from her very much sooner. But I, like, stuck there just because I had these fears. And it's, like, kind of, like, silly fears. But, again, I think for me now becoming a mother, it's been a little bit more challenging in a sense because, you know, you almost feel like so many people are pressing so much more on you, and these decisions are just like, they feel just so much heavier.
But you know what's funny? I don't think our doctors walked out of, like, with Indy, I don't think the doctor walked out thinking, that mom is making a serious mistake, and da-da-da-da-da. And whenever you left that one doctor, I don't think she was like, well, she's missing out. That lady was not worth my time in a minute. You know, I don't think it's as magnified as we make it.
Yeah, and I think that's part of being a people pleaser
100%.
Is that you work it up so much in your head. And that's another, like, kind of like aspect or whatever I know in my personality is that I cannot stand knowing that I upset someone. Like, if someone's angry with me, upset, there's any sort of tension, it will keep me up at night and I will go crazy. So even to think that a doctor that I barely know and barely knows me might have some sort of negative feeling towards me, I would, like, sweat. Like, it's just crazy. We're being so vulnerable and real, but I'm like, that's the way my people-pleasing mind works, my personality.
And I feel like there are things that go hand in hand. I feel like your people-pleasers are often overthinkers, are often over-apologizers, and, like, it's just, like, I don't know. If you get it, you get it. And if you don't get it, I'm jealous.
There's probably some people like, I can't believe those girls would just,
and I do think we're extreme. Like, I do think there are some people who are like, you know what? I want to make you happy, but if I can't, sorry.
But I do think there's lots of other people out there who can probably relate to a lot 100%. Of the stuff that we're saying. And it made me think about even, like, our Enneagram types. I know I'm a 2 and you're a 9, right? So I know, like, type 2s are people who, like, they're, like, helpers, but, like, you know, they also want to be well-liked and popular and stuff like that. So I see how that plays into that personality.
And 9s don't like conflict. Hello, me. Like, if you really think down to it, we talked about, like, why we people please. Like, what happens when we people please? Like, what benefit does making someone else happy, like, what benefit do we reap? Does that make sense?
Well, I feel like I could first answer the question that what are some of the negatives of people pleasing, and that sometimes there are no benefits in a sense. Like, I just think of all the times that when I over yes myself, I commit to doing way too many things to the point where I'm exhausted and I'm, like, regretting it, and I have a full schedule. And just like at the expense of my own energy and everything like that.
And then you're pulling, again, not to be like a negative Nancy, but, like, every yes has a no. So by saying yes to helping that person at work where you work overtime, you're saying no to a family activity.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes it's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes in saying yes to eating at home, I'm saying no to a rushed dinner in the car or whatever the case may be. But, so again, that's just something else to think about is like, I think in this specific example, I've been talking about like personal situations where like something silly like a restaurant or something, but people pleasing can also be, like you just said, taking on way more than you want, because I guess in my mind, if someone is asking me for help, there's a reason they can't do it, or something's happening and they need that support. And so it's like, yes, I'll take it on. And it's like, oh, why did you do that?
It's kind of like you want to be, like, I know at least for me, it's like I want to be known as a helper. Again, that's like my type too. But like if someone's reaching out to me and asking for help, like sometimes that's not easy to do. So it's like I want to be known as somebody who will always be there to lend a hand.
And if you say no, you're not always there.
Exactly. And I want to be like an accountable, loyal person. And so I fear even just what one little no would do, you know? And I love that kind of perspective of like, I don't know, like sometimes you do have to like step up, and it's not even selfish, but like be selfish for yourself once, you know, and just say, no, though, like I want to help you. I need to like focus on resting or something like that. And to stop and think, okay, if I said yes to this, what am I saying no to?
Right.
Like I love that perspective, and even just taking a moment to like think that through before responding or whatever.
And then kind of on the other hand though, I think for me personally, when I think about people pleasing, I know how hard it can be to ask someone for help.
Yeah.
And what a, like, it's almost like a hit to your pride to like not be able to do something on your own. And so to know that someone is vulnerably asking for something of me, if I say no, what if they feel like they can't come to me again? What if they overthink that and are like, well, she must not like me, or again, silly stuff. But if you get it, you get it. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where it's like, I care so much about how you feel, and I think because of how I want people to feel about themselves, not only myself, but I don't want anybody to take an ego hit or to feel like they were a burden in any way. So I will burden myself to make you not feel like a burden.
Yeah, yeah. And I know for me, another thing is like not wanting to inconvenience other people.
Definitely.
And not wanting to be an inconvenience myself. Because when you said burden, that made me think of that. And so like I will do that to the point of even like I won't ask my mother-in-law to babysit for me because I don't want to inconvenience her and she's already busy, and like Josh and I don't need a date night. It's fine, you know, like, you know, but like that's just when I say it and think about it, I'm like, that's so silly. And I mean, you know, my mother-in-law, she would never be like, you know, she would jump at the chance to do that. Yeah. But I'm like, I don't want to be a burden to somebody else. And yet, you know, I myself am willing to jump and help anyone at the drop of the hat, you know. And I don't say that to like toot my own horn. It's probably a somewhat negative thing, but when I do it too much. But
so we have talked about people pleasing. We have talked about the root cause of like why we people please.
Yep.
We kind of talked about like the burdens, because I mean it puts a lot on us, and I don't want to say it drags us down, but like it's almost like you're willing to bear a weight to take it off of someone else's shoulders. How on earth can we help? Like I feel
can
like
we not people please?
Yeah. So like I feel like this is an area that I don't want to talk your ear off today. I don't want this the Riley show, but I feel like because I have had growth recently in that area, I feel like I actually have at least one idea, but I do feel like I can speak into that. But before I do, because I've just rambled for the past 30 minutes, do you have any ways that you're working on people pleasing, things that help you?
I would say no ways that I have currently of working on it, but again, going back to what you said earlier, I think it would help me to take a moment and stop again and think about, before I say yes to this, what am I saying no to?
Yeah.
I know for me, going back to what you said earlier, is I think it would really help me to stop in that moment, and before I say yes, think about what I'm saying no to. Like, again, I think I say a lot of yeses because, I mean, one, I love the opportunities often, but again, I want to be that dependable person. But a lot of times I say yes way too much, and by the end of the week I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like so busy, and I would love to just have a day to do nothing, but
Right.
I'm already committed to all these things and can't. So if I were to just take time and not like respond impulsively or like right then and there, I think that would help me a lot, again, to think about, okay, Bethany, well, what are you even like personally sacrificing? And honestly, I think, again, as I'm processing it, I think I really just, it might be cliche, but I think I really need to take it to the Lord, because I really do like harbor so much guilt with saying no. And like,
Yeah.
I think that's something I just need to like surrender and just like ask God to like jump in there and take a hold of that, because I honestly don't think I can get rid of that guilt without him. Like, because even thinking about saying no to things right now, I'm like getting a little anxious.
Can I offer some unsolicited advice here?
It's always solicited.
So, some solicited advice. First
It's like
of
this
all,
is going to be a Bethany therapy session.
I'm going to put my God advice first, because I always do it last and I always feel bad. So, first of all, if we could stop people pleasing and start God pleasing.
Yes.
Number one.
Yes.
Boom, mic drop.
Okay, that's it. That's it.
But again, easier said than done, I know. But again, what does the Bible say I should do? Like, I think we're called to serve, but we're not called to bear an unrealistic amount of weight where you are hurting yourself in the process.
Yeah.
But that's the Jesus advice. What I was going to
Riley
say,
advice.
going to the yes and no, it's true that every yes has a no.
Mm-hmm.
But if you struggle with that, it's also true that every no has a yes. So instead of thinking like, okay, if I say yes to this, I am saying no to an hour of playtime with my kids.
Uh-huh.
You could say, I'm going to say no to this because I'm saying yes to this time with my kids.
Riley, this is so good.
Well, thank you. But again, I just think it's so important. I feel like our mindset is everything.
Yeah.
And I think when you start, like the opportunity cost thing, that's
Yeah.
like a huge role for me. And then for me personally, this is the biggest thing for me. It has helped so much. You don't have to give an answer in the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was an instance that I'm thinking of where with my people pleaser tendency, I don't like to upset you. And it's just know if I ever tell you no, it is very hard for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there was a situation where I texted someone some news that I was essentially not going to be able to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And in the text I said, I know that it's silly for me to text this. I need to meet you for lunch. At the bare minimum, I should call you. But this decision is weighing so heavy on my heart, I can't talk about it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I have to text. I'm sorry, you can call me.
Yeah,
Whatever you need to
yeah.
call me. In this moment, this is where I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the person called me. And again, people pleaser. I didn't want to set that boundary.
Mm-hmm.
So I, first of all, put my own boundary aside, which isn't good.
Mm-hmm.
But second, I answered the phone call because gotta people please, you
Yeah.
know? And we had a conversation, and I ultimately, I don't want to say I changed my mind,
Mm-hmm.
but I definitely left it as I'll think about
Maybe.
it, instead of that firm no,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And all that to say, it's okay to be like, in this moment, I can't give you
Yeah,
a definite answer. And it's okay to switch that medium of communication if you need to.
yeah.
Because there is nothing wrong with letting that call go and then texting and being like, look, I really can't do this.
Yeah.
Or even just be like, I need some space, or whatever the case may be. I know for me, it's a lot easier to say no in text.
Yeah,
Not
that's what I was
just
gonna
because there's not that interaction face to face. You can't hear disappointment or anything like that. Not only that, but I can really think about my words.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I can articulate it the way I want to. It's not word vomit. Like, that's just what works for me.
Yeah.
So there's no shame in doing what you've got to do. You know, like, I'm so worried about being a burden that I hate making phone calls.
Yeah.
Like, if you can call someone or send the company an email, I'm going the email
Yeah,
route. I don't
yeah.
care if it's 3 to 5 business days. It's just a people pleaser. I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want to inconvenience them. I don't want to, if they tell me something to fix the problem and I really am dead set on canceling the subscription.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yep, yep.
So there is nothing wrong with taking whatever medium you need to take to set that boundary or to give your no.
Yeah. And I think that there is another way is setting boundaries. Like, that's how we don't
and sticking to them, because it doesn't do any good to set it if you're not going to respect it.
Yeah. And I think something that could help with setting that boundary, I was just kind of thinking about this as you were talking, is like, I know one thing for me is I can be a very visual person, so I think it would help me to like literally write out a list of like my priorities.
That's a good idea.
So like, you know, if it was God, my family, work, whatever. If I could like write that out and see that list, and then like when I have an opportunity that arises where maybe I'm like already feeling like I want to say no, if I could like think back to that list and be like, okay, so like where does this fall in my priorities? Like, you know, if it's something where it might come in the way of like family or God or something, you know, like if it puts a wedge in between that, like maybe it is something I need to say no to.
That's a really good idea.
Just thinking about like, I guess it could kind of go back to that yes and no thing, but just thinking about where does this fall in my priorities, or does this help with any of these priorities or whatever type of thing?
The more you say, not that you should always say no, it's not the moral of the story, but the more you say no, the more time you have, so you can say yes to the things you really want to say yes to.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
yes. I don't really know if this one is going to be like a tip or if it's like, it's just something I want to voice and take, you know, do with it what you will.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of my experience with trying to be less of a people pleaser, and, you know, even like things like my health, like changing my mindset on wanting to look a certain way to wanting to be healthy in general.
Yeah.
A lot of these things have started happening. These shifts in my mind have happened with becoming a mom. And I think a huge reason for that is because when I look in the mirror and like really start dissecting myself as a person, there is so much in me that I want my daughter to have.
Yeah.
And there is so much that I don't want her to struggle with.
Yeah.
And it's things that like have not been, like, I didn't learn them from anywhere. They haven't been forced upon me. It is just who I am as a person. And I'm like, I want Indy to be considerate.
Yeah.
And I want her to care about other people and to be generous and to be helpful. But I don't want her to be afraid to say no. And so I feel like a lot of where I'm personally at on my walk is like wanting to model for her the best mom that I think she can have.
Yeah.
Does that make me the best mom ever? No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I want to be the best me for her, and I think that has kind of like inspired all of my like soul searching, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it can all even just boil down to like literally a mindset shift and a mindset change.
And that's the thing, it's all mental.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that makes sense as to why.
And everything else would like flow from that, you know. And it kind of makes me think of the episode we just recorded about like regulating our emotions, and like talking about how when we learn to do it, you know, we're modeling it for our children, and then they're learning from us. So just like even with people pleasing, it's like when we learn to like say confident, reasonable no's or whatever, like, you know, our children are going to learn the same from that. Because even like you were saying, like there are good things about people pleasing. You are considerate, you are helpful, you are even generous.
It comes from a good place.
Yes. But again, not at the cost of yourself and, again, your own boundaries and things like that. So there's definitely good things to it within certain boundaries.
No, for sure. And like, I think it's also super cool to see all these different topics kind of like mesh.
Yeah,
like you were just saying, like I mentioned the identity episode and you mentioned the emotion regulations, because like literally I got to practice that like today.
Yeah.
Like it's just so cool to actually have these conversations and to walk away with what I feel are very practical things that we can implement to help us. And here's the thing, you're not going to listen to this podcast and your life be forever changed and you never struggle with people pleasing again. It's all a like life itself is just a huge process.
Yeah.
And so like it's not like I'm never going to people please again. I wish, but that's not going to be the case.
Yeah. But now we have tools to like help us, you know,
in those moments.
Yeah. Help us to, I dare say, like, do it rightly, you know, like, be helpful and considerate and generous, but not at the cost of like our own families or priorities or whatever.
And this is not a podcast to say you should say no, because again, you need to say yes sometimes. And sometimes you are going to have to make a sacrifice to say a yes. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't ever do that. It just means that you can't run yourself ragged to make other people happy.
Yeah. And this might be circling back too much, but there are also like definitely times where I've wanted to say no and have said yes, and it's been great. You know, it's been like, I'm so glad I ended up saying yes. But But there have also been times that, sorry to cut you off, but like I have also said yes and hung up the phone and just bawled. Yeah. Because I know I can't do more. Yeah.
And I know that I shouldn't have said that. But in the moment, it's just like impulsive, and I don't know what it is about me that just can't say no, you know?
Yeah.
But we're getting there.
Yeah. And I was going to say, hopefully there's like, again, even if you're not a people pleaser, like you can learn something about boundaries, or I feel like the whole no yes thing is like so helpful for anyone.
For sure. And if you don't struggle with this personally, you probably know someone who does. And so just to have those friends who are like, you can tell me if this is too much, or you can tell me no, don't be afraid. To have a safe space for someone to be able to say no is just like so helpful.
Yeah. Icing on the cake. So again, we hope that there was something in this for everyone. And I know we kind of referenced a lot of our other episodes. So if you haven't listened to those, go back and take a listen.
And while we're doing a little plug here, I'm going to go ahead and say, if you don't mind, to give the episode a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, subscribe. If you are listening on a podcast platform, if you would leave us 5 stars or hit the share button. Again, sorry to just like straight up ask for this stuff, but
people pleasing, apologizing.
Right. But we really just want to make sure that the mamas that need to hear this have access to it. And so we're really trying to make sure that we are reaching where God wants us to go.
Yeah. And if you don't already follow us on Instagram at @themotherhood_moms, often after we share our episodes, we do kind of a little like summary post and have some fun things that relate to this topic afterward, even opportunities for you to share your experiences. We would love to hear maybe even just like funny stories of how you got caught people pleasing, or tips that you have for how you've kind of overcome it. So make sure you follow us over there and interact with us. We love this community. We love the friends that we've made. So be sure to join it. This people-pleasing moms community.
That's what we should have made our Instagram account, at people-pleasing moms.
We could have made a whole podcast off of this. Anyways, we hope you guys will come back and join us next week. And until then, have a wonderful week.
Bye, guys. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to us, friend. If you felt encouraged by what you heard, please consider giving us a review wherever you listen to your podcast. Unless you hated it, because like your mom always said, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
And to officially join the Motherhood, follow us on Instagram at @themotherhood_moms. We always have ways to interact, and we want to hear from you. Have a great week.